You're watching Horror News Network.
Sure. I'm TQ Jefferson. I am the Chief Product Officer of Servios and the Creative Director on Alien Rogue Incursion.
So to start off, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when putting this whole project together?
I think the biggest challenge was making the xenomorph feel authentic. So we didn't want an enemy that was easy to beat. We didn't want an enemy that was predictable. We wanted something that felt like it came right out of the movie. So in order to do that, we set up some very, very simple rules for the xenomorph and how it behaves once it's in the world. And once we did, we let it go. And consequently, all of these different behaviors start to emerge, all on their own. So you can be in a hallway fighting a couple of xenomorphs. You can do that 6 times, and there'll be 6 different fights. It's not, I know I can post up here, and I can fire down this line, and they'll always... No, they're going to come from the ceiling, they're going to come through the walls, they're going to come from behind you, they're going to come from under you. They choose how they're going to get to you once they're in the world. And once we did that, they became terrifying, because you just didn't know where they were, you didn't know when they were going to show up, and your behaviors in game can influence how often they show up. So then now that makes you pretty careful about how you're interacting with the world, which is fun in VR because everything is physicalized, or a lot of things are physicalized. So you can knock stuff over, and you knock it over and you go, wait, and then you hear it shriek. You're like, great, I just called a bunch of xenomorphs. So unlocking that was the linchpin.
So you mentioned making noise and all that stuff. Are there other things in the game that could potentially draw them, or is it going to be more noise-based, or certain very specific action-based type things?
They are primarily driven by noise, but given the scenario that we're putting the player in and part of our story, some of their behaviors are patrolling, lurking, just checking things out. So you could see a xenomorph come into a room just because it thinks something's there. And unlike, a dumb security guard in another video game was like, I guess whatever, and they walk off. No, it'll leap up on it and perch somewhere and just sort of wait to see if you're going to do something. So they have we want to make them feel very intelligent and very independent, but not so punishing that you're like, I can't win against these things. It's challenging enough that when you do win, you're like, yes, because Zula, who's our player character and our hero, Zula's not a superhero. She doesn't have powers. She's a normal person in an extraordinary situation, and we have to make that feel good.
So kind of like the original movies with the Sigourney Weaver's characters.
Yeah,
kind of just like the generic.
Yes,
it becomes a badass over time.
I would say the biggest difference, and one of the reasons we selected Zula, is that Zula is a former colonial Marine. And if you look at her origin books, Defiance, Resistance, Rescue, you'll see someone that has encountered xenomorphs before and has the skills to combat them. So whereas you have in an Ellen Ripley or an Amanda Ripley, 2 people that have been put into a very extraordinary circumstance and rise above, Zula is willingly going into the fray because she's made it her mission to wipe out Xenos wherever she can find them.
Can you talk a little bit more about the VR aspects of this game and how motion is affecting things as well?
Sure. I think the one of the more interesting things, and is why VR is so wonderful for Alien, is the interactivity, how physical the world is. Like I said, you can knock things over and it's going to make noise, and the game's going to react to that. But it's also things like reloading your weapon. Like the whole point of VR is immersion. So it's not just I press X and I reload. It's I eject the magazine I grab a new one, I slap it in. These are physical gestures I'm doing in game and in the real world, and I'm racking it, right? That's how I reload my pulse rifle. With my shotgun, I pull out my shotgun and I'm loading shells one at a time. And if you think you could do it quickly, try doing it when xenomorphs are running down the hallway at you. You're just like, sometimes you'll put 2 or 3 in, get a couple of shots, and when you do that, pump, fire, put a couple more in, just you shoot them to make space. So you are so immersed one-to-one what the player character is doing because you have to do it yourself physically in the world. That is what VR brings to the equation.
So were you a big horror fan yourself?
It's a great question, and my relationship with Alien and the Xenomorph is complicated.
Okay.
I saw it when I was entirely too young to watch one of those movies, and it scared the willies out of me, traumatized me. I couldn't watch scary movies for years afterwards. Then I got back into it. Then the works of H.R. Giger. It's just beautiful and strange art. And then I was working before Servios. I was working at Disney / 20th Century, working on Alien games. So I sort of came full circle. And now I'm so much of a fan that I've got my Xenomorph tattoo right now. So they terrify me. And my nickname for the game is Closure. So this for me, it's like it's been a journey.
It's definitely got to be surreal for you to you're like, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
And there have been times like I said, the xenomorphs can come from anywhere. So I could be doing something like opening up a door with the plasma torch, and all of a sudden there's one behind me, and just like you see this in horror movies where someone's like, and you do that, and it's there, and I've had times where I'm like, oh, that old trauma comes back. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just it gives me chills sometimes.
How many times have you played through it?
I play it every other day,
Okay.
so a lot, but that's part of our process. We either play it ourselves or we play it all together, where we're looking at it, reviewing it, commenting on it. We make sure we get a lot of time in the hardware to really dial in the experience.
How long does a project like this take from pie in the sky to
We've been developing the game for it'll be almost 3 years by the time the game launches. And that's a timeline that I think you're going to see more of in VR as the hardware becomes more sophisticated and the teams can do more and create more, and you're going to see development timelines that mirror what we're seeing in PC consoles.
Were there any specific features, one of the platforms off the bat that you were excited about, or is it just kind of like a blanket experience between all the different platforms?
Well, each of them have their own sort of product pillars. So the idea of we try to make sure that we are using the hardware to best effect. Now, one thing that I really do enjoy about, let's say, PSVR 2 is the headset has haptics in it. So the idea of like being face hugged is something you can feel in the real world. The idea of like getting brain punched by the inner jaw is something you can feel. And so making sure that we dial in those aspects of gameplay are critical.
Yeah, I was curious if you could like walk through and feel the drip of the saliva on your head as you're going through and be like, oh crap.
Or imagine the sizzle of acid burning,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So we try to lean into what's in the IP and what's in the hardware that's going to let us really marry them together and make something that is creepy, scary, uncomfortable in a good way. That sort of thing.
What is your hope that fans are going to take away?
But when we made the game, we set out to do three things. We want to make the most authentic, interesting, dynamic xenomorph combat ever. We wanted to nail the aesthetics of Alien. We wanted you to feel like you stepped into that world. And then last, and I'd say arguably most importantly, we want people to want more. We want to make Alien for a good long time. There are so many adventures that we could take Zula on, and but the first step is this first game. Those are our three goals starting the project.
What is your favorite horror aspect of this game?
The sound design, including the music. I've said to the team many times that the audio in Alien is second only to the xenomorph itself.
Thank you for watching Horror News Network.